morning. This is Rich Sierra, president of the Florida Small Business Legal Center and host of the Business SOS podcast. This is episode number 29 of Business SOS. We're very excited as we continue providing some great content for our business owners that are listening to our show. Today we have a special guest. I'm very excited for today. We have Kate Delaney here with us. And before I introduce her, I wanted to give you just a little information about her. Kate Delaney is an award-winning national broadcast personality. She has interviewed over 16,000 people, including U.S. presidents, countless of celebrities and sport legends, and her 20 years in her radio and television career. She won an Emmy for a special report on AIDS epidemic in New Mexico, several Golden Mics for a series on immigration. She's a best-selling author of several books, including one that we will be speaking about today, Deal Your Own Destiny, Increase the Odds, Winning Big, and Become Extraordinary. She also is the host of America Tonight radio show, which reaches over 3 million listeners nightly through many stations throughout the country. Kate, welcome to the show.
Rich, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on.
I want to just show to our audience the book. We also have this in our YouTube channel and under youtube.com/@RichardSierra. So I'm actually showing the book, the cover of the book, Build Your Own Destiny. I read the book twice. I read it first time, and then I read it again to prepare for this interview. I'm excited about this book. It's inspirational. It really relates to business owners. I related to it. And I'll probably read it again just to get, every time I read it, I get more out of it. So tell me, what motivated you to write the book?
Well, I feel like there's so many people that I would come across, Rich, so many business owners, so many entrepreneurs, so many, frankly, people in the C-suite that were struggling as far as expanding and growing and globally and that kind of thing, that felt like they were questioning what the motivation was, how to get there, dealing with rejection, dealing with complacency. There were so many different issues that I came across in my speaking career that I thought, I have to tell the story. I have to tell my story. How did I get from being rejected 500 times to finally breaking the so-called glass ceiling and getting the job that I wanted? And what did I learn along the way from people who might have had a different path, but had to do maybe something a little similar?
Tell me more about, 500 rejections. Many of us, including myself, I'm not sure if I would have continued that path after getting so many rejection letters. What kept you going? What motivated you to continue? And I believe that you would have continued even if 1,000 letters would have come in. So what really pushed you? What drove you to continue?
I felt like it was my destiny. I felt like if I didn't pursue what I wanted to pursue, that I would have regrets. And I didn't want to live with regrets. I didn't want to look over my shoulder and think what could have been. I wish I had done that. I didn't want to have that feeling. So I knew if I kept digging, I really felt like I would eventually get that break. Did I think it was going to be that many rejections? No. But I knew I had to continue to chip away at it, to be as positive as I could, to not listen to the critics. And often the critics, and many of the people listening to this podcast know it, are the people that love you because they don't understand why you're pursuing something that seems like it's an impossible reach, and why, if you're smart, if you have other skill sets, why aren't you pursuing another path that could be maybe even more lucrative?
You're right. So for the benefit of the listeners, what was that goal, that dream that you were pursuing?
My goal was, at the time, I was a television anchor reporter, but my goal was to do sports because I like sports. As much as I was a content junkie and I loved news and information, I really, really loved sports. I liked the competitive nature of it. I liked learning about athletes. I watched sports growing up. I played tennis and golf, and I just was drawn to that. But so I knew that's, once I did it, once I had a chance to fill in for someone, it was actually on the radio and on TV, I had the same opportunity. I knew I had to do this. I knew this is what I wanted to pursue.
How did it feel from when you got that big break, from getting the rejections letters to that, when you knew that, like, you know what, this is breaking my way?
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was like, it sounds weird, but it's kind of like if all of you look up into the sky and you see those big puffy clouds, it was like I was floating on a cloud. I had that feeling that people try to capture when they meditate. I fell into the gap. I felt fantastic. I knew this was absolutely the right avenue for me. And I wanted more of it. I wanted to be able to get to the highest level I could get.
And that story kind of relates to business ownership, because sometimes as we pursue, the reason we go into business because we believe we can do it better than anybody else. We believe they're problem solvers. We believe that, our way is a way that we can make a difference, and for ourselves, for our families, and we can make money at it. But the road to business ownership comes with a lot of challenges, a lot of rejections. And at least from my experience, that you feel in this roller coaster ride, sometimes you're showing up, you keep doing it, and then you get that break. And you feel like, I got it. This is good. So I relate to that story because simply it's just, half of the battle is showing up. Half of the battle is showing up.
It is showing up. And I think what you said is absolutely 100% right. That feeling, knowing when you finally turned a corner, that if you keep going, even if you have a few little turns in a couple of different directions, you're absolutely 100% doing the right thing. You feel it, you know it, and now you have what we call momentum. You start to get a little bit of that momentum, and it gets exciting.
Yes. One of the stories, one of my favorite stories in your book is the locker room story. Can you share the story with us?
Sure. Finally, I get a break, and I'm doing a talk show. I'm going to do a talk show in Dallas, Texas, and it's a huge station, and it's all guys, and it's all people that have grew up in that area. And I grew up outside of Philadelphia, of course, an Eagles fan, and this is the Dallas Cowboys locker room. And when I come to town, one of the other talk show hosts suggests, listen, you have to go in that locker room because you're going to be criticizing players, you're going to be praising them, you're going to be talking about all kinds of things, and people are going to be watching and listening to what you have to say. And they wanted me to cover something, so I had to go cover something. So I find my way to the Dallas Cowboys. They're having a practice, and I have a chance to interview some of the players. And the first thing that happens, I arrive at the desk, and I tell the guy behind the desk, the security guard, I'm here for the Dallas Cowboys. And he goes, "Oh, you're down the hall the other way." He thought that I was there for cheerleader tryouts. I don't even know if I put that part in the book. And I tell it when I speak. And so maybe in a way I was flattered. Okay, so you think I look like a cheerleader, but I'm like, no, I'm Kate Delaney. I'm new. I'm going to be on the ticket, a big, huge station. And he was just flabbergasted, shocked. He almost didn't believe me. And then said, okay, go down to the left, and there's where the locker room is. And I went in the locker room, and you could hear a pin drop, basically, when I went in. I was looking around, and there was guys that were in various forms of dress. I always say you look up. Everything's good when you look up. So I was looking up as much as I could, Rich. I'm looking up. They were in towels and getting dressed and whatnot. And I was nervous. I had a skirt on. I was dressed up, and I never get nervous. And my hands were getting sweaty. I could feel it. So I had a microphone in my hand, and I started to rub my hands to get the sweat off, the perspiration off my hands, and I dropped the microphone.
A big mistake.
And it just bounced on the ground. And when I dropped the microphone, I could hear this click, 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 like cowboy boots. And sure enough, one of the players, and it was Jay Novacek at the time, he says, "Darling, don't pick it up. Don't pick it up. For God's sake, don't pick it up." He bends over, picks up the mic, hands it to me, and says, "We sure are glad you're here."
That's a great story. Thanks for sharing it with us. But it's also a story about comfort zone. That in order for us to do something, especially going to that next level that we want to pursue, we have to be willing to get out of our comfort zone. And this is an example of how you went in there as a female reporter to a professional male locker room. And yeah, you were nervous clearly, but you were completely out of your comfort zone. But I believe that you knew that for your career, you had to do it.
I did. I knew that I would have to know players. I would have to be able to approach them. I'd have to be able to have connections. And I couldn't just hide behind a microphone somewhere because I wouldn't get ratings. I wouldn't get known. I wouldn't do the things that you need to do to get those contacts and to break stories and to be able to be the trendsetter and to hit the kind of goals that I wanted to set. I absolutely had to stretch myself. And you're right. I mean, that word is great. Discomfort. I dance in a discomfort zone in my life, and I had to do it then, or otherwise I wasn't going to succeed.
It's also about credibility. That I believe that you knew at the time that in order for me to be respected or be credible in this field, this male-dominated field of sportscasting, you had to do it. I mean, it's having the credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And it totally relates to the business owner. You have to have that credibility. If you're gaining that expertise and you have a certain level of expertise, and you should always be working on gaining more knowledge and working on your skills. And I had to do that. I had to have the credibility and I had to grow. And the only way you do that is to be able to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. One of the things you talk about in your book is about the importance of believing in yourself. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's like I mentioned at the top. What often happens is it's not the necessarily people that are sniping at you that could be competitors or people who don't know you well. A lot of times it's the people close to you that are trying to dissuade you from the direction you want to go in. So you really have to dig deep and believe in yourself. That word belief is so important. Believe that you can get there. Figure out what it is that you need to do to mentally build up your mind, physically be ready, to be ready in all aspects of your life as you come up against these obstacles, these walls, these people trying to dissuade you, or things that go haywire, because business can go in lots of different directions.
It does.
You're swimming along, and then all of a sudden you fall off a cliff. Well, how do you come back to that? You have to believe. And you also said this, where you believe that you can do it better. You believe for your family you can make more money. You believe that you can add to the community. You believe that you have the right product or service that can be the solution for a whole lot of people. And you have to absolutely 100% have that belief day after day after day after day after day, because it's never overnight.
How do you find the motivation? Because in business ownership, there are setbacks. And, I've been in business now as an attorney for 19 years. Before that, for another 10 years, I run an online company, marketing company. So, and there are times that you're like, I've done everything. And so how do you find the motivation to get up the next morning and continue when everything seems to go wrong?
Well, it's that saying, like, do you take action, or is it that fear that holds you back? How do you get through that fear? How do you figure out a way to motivate yourself when you have those setbacks? And what I do is, one, I have a mastermind of people that I go to. So if there's something that happens to me, I have various people in a business capacity that I would immediately call. Hey, here's what's happening. What do you got for me? What can we do? What do you think? And I bounce ideas off people that I trust, that know me personally and professionally. And then I have also mentors that I would reach out to. I think it's key to have those kinds of people around you, that when you're in a slump, when something blindsides you, that you can go to seek their advice. They're not telling you what to do, but they're seeing the problem from a different angle. And because you have that relationship, they can give you some of those really credible suggestions that may help you get to whatever it is you're trying to get to and pull you back in and keep you on that path. And they believe in you. So that's going to make you feel good. You need raving fans. You need some people who believe in you. Even if it's one person, you have to have those people in your life. I always say, you got to stack the deck. You got to stack the deck with raving fans, not people who don't believe in you.
I agree with that. There's a quote in your book. It might be, it's a section actually. It says, name your dream, find your mentor, build your advocates.
Yeah. I mean, you have to call it out. Some people, I had a conversation once with Matthew McConaughey, and one of the things, the famous actor, one of the things he says is, write it down, put it in your pocket, put it in your wallet, make sure that you see it, look at it every single day. And I think there's something to that. I journal every day and I write down the same goals, the objectives in a space in that journal every single day, so that when something tough happens, or even if great things are happening, I look at it, I remind myself, what is it? What am I trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think writing things down are very important, and I keep the track of things on a daily basis because I look at trends. I'm not really too much of a looking backwards too much, simply because it's just whatever's in the past is gone. I cannot turn back time, but it gives me trends, and it gives me going forward. So I keep track of daily revenue, daily sales, what are we doing on a daily basis? And then I look at trends, where were we at this point last year, to kind of give me an idea where we're going. So daily tracking is important. I mean, that's the way, I know people keep track of, revenue by the month, by the quarter. We don't get paid by the month. We get paid by the quarter. We focus on a daily production, at least in what we do, is what we do on the day. That's what matters, that production, that discipline on that daily basis. That cumulative effect, then you see the results. It will not happen overnight. And you talk about, and I don't think it's in the book, but I think I listened to one of your speeches, you talk about the power of patience. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I say the three things. You have to be patient. You have to go all in. You have to go all in. You have to remember that patience pays. And then the third thing I talked about just before, stack the deck with raving fans, because you're going to need people that support you. So the patience part is very key, because you said it right when we started talking, and initially when you cracked open the mic, the rejections. So how do you overcome rejections? How do you overcome setbacks? How do you overcome things that make you uncomfortable? And how do you keep pursuing that goal? And I like how you say the daily goal, because you're right. You should break it down in a granular level, where you do it daily, you do it monthly, quarterly, all that kind of stuff. But to be able to see it and to be able to chart it and to look at trends, absolutely 100%. And patience, in order for it to pay, you've got to be able to look and see that. You've got to be able to know that it's not going to happen overnight. It's very unusual when it does. And sometimes when it does happen, then it reels backwards. And because you're not a patient person and you haven't learned that in business, it becomes more difficult. Because I think it's a key aspect to getting the success that you want in life, period, in all areas. And you know this from, I'm sure you've talked about this on your podcast, Jiu-Jitsu. You didn't start off at the level that you ended up at. You had to have the patience. You had to be able to train and learn and have the skills. That's why a lot of times when you do something athletically, even playing tennis at a club level, or going and playing with friends once a week, how do you get better? How do you, what's the goal of that? And I think athletics lends itself to business because of the patience you have to build up those skills to get better at what you're doing. Because again, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a step-by-step kind of thing. And it's really tough because, we want success. Most of us want success right away. We have fast food is huge for a reason. Yeah. Drive through, get your food, boom. We don't want to take an hour to cook. We don't want to take 45 minutes to cook. We're a nation of people that like things to happen quickly.
Yes, that's a great point. And, I've been doing martial arts since I'm 9 years old, and on and off. And the last 10 years, trained judo and jiu-jitsu as well. And they're very humbling sports. You got to leave your ego at the door. There's a lot of bruises, a lot of tears. And what I learned, especially, and I started doing Taekwondo as well when I started my martial arts career, if there's a career in that, there are no shortcuts. The belts basically show the level that you have achieved at the time. And what happened as when I was trained for competitions, like before COVID, I trained every day. I trained like 10 hours a week, and you did not feel you were improving, but your instructors knew you were improving. And you don't see that. you say, I'm not getting better. I'm not getting better. I'm still showing up. And you cry and you get bruised and you get injured and you cry again. It's a lot of crying in martial arts because you're frustrated. You get choked, your arm barred. But then, then you go with somebody who is just starting out or somebody who just perhaps not at your same level. You realize, this is beginning to work. This actually works. I'm learning. So what happened is, as we in our business career in martial arts and sports, people don't realize that you're actually improving slowly and you do not see the improvement as you're going forward. And that's where the impatience comes in.
Wow, that's a great example because that's difficult. And I'm sure there are so many people that quit, that give up, like, I like this, but I can't do it. I can't do this. I'm not going to get there. The giving up is the thing. And that's the deal. If you just hang in there, I mean, how many people give up versus the people that keep moving forward? I think you find that success. You really do. Patience is key to success in business and in other areas of your life.
Yeah. Getting the right mentors, as you mentioned in your book, are very important. The right coaches are important as well, simply because we cannot keep beating our head against the wall and thinking that things are going to change, which is the reason I wrote my book, the Business SOS, 8 Common Legal Mistakes Business Owner Makes and How to Avoid Them, because I found out that business owners, as I now 19 years in practice, I've interviewed several thousand business owners from my career, the problems were the same. They were the same problems. And they were dealing with contract issues. They were just not getting advice. They were not reading their own contracts. They were doing deals without a contract, investing in businesses. They were the same problems. And I'm like, I need to catalog these. I need to mention them and talk about them. So other business owners, if they see these yellow lights and they say, okay, maybe, I can recognize something that could happen. Let me call an attorney. So, that's kind of the reason I wrote the book as well, is simply because it's just the fact that they just run into these mistakes. They don't get the professional advice they need. And then they quit because they just didn't know what they were doing. So.
Yeah, your book is so good. Your book I think should be a must-have read for people in business. And I'm not just saying that because I'm hearing your podcast, but I really, truly rich. And at any level, whether you're starting a business, you're mid-career, you're getting out of one business and getting into another business, you're getting into business with friends, which can be tricky, and all business lawyers know that, yeah. Or getting into business with whoever in a partnership. And your book really lays that out. And if you, as you say, you get to those yellow lights, and then perhaps it's not as dramatic, and you can save yourself a lot of money, a lot of heartache, and a lot of time.
One phone call can make a difference.
Yeah. Just
that quick phone call, say, am I going the right way? Okay, you need to get the proper direction. But, thank you, Kate. I appreciate that. You talk in your book about the danger of complacency. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, and it's happened to me. I mean, I think it happens to all of us, no matter how ambitious you are or what you've achieved. And there's that danger, too, when you achieve certain things. Like, here's the thing. Life, it sounds so cliche, but life is a journey. Business is a journey. And it's not about the destination so much. Yes, you have to have the goal and you're going along and all of that. But it's all of what happens in the journey. You have to be able to be flexible and have to be able to pivot and do the things that you need to do to find that success and to keep learning and growing. I've said this a couple times now, and get those extra skill sets. Because once you've achieved a certain amount of success, and it's automatic, and it becomes what I call set it and forget it. So if you're on set it and forget it mode, hey, we're making plenty of money, everything's good, and you're just checking in every day, you're just getting up, doing the thing, you're happy, but you're not looking down the road. You're not looking at what's happening with technology. You're not looking at, I love the word trends, which you said, you're not looking at the trends. You're not looking at the competition. You're not looking at maybe how customers are changing. Are you paying attention to your really super great customers while you're busy, your company's busy working on new customers? A lot of times the customers you've had for a long time get sort of pushed off into the cheap seats because you think it's plug and play and it's automatic. but you got to take care of everybody. So it's very easy to fall into that complacency zone. And I've done it where I hit a certain amount of success with a network. I'm doing well. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm focusing on other areas of my business, and I'm neglecting the area that's doing super well because I feel like, well, we hit it. We're there. No worries. And we'll work on it, but it's not, I don't have to do this every day. I don't have to do this every week. And then suddenly you get a curveball, and now you got to deal with a fire.
You're right about that. I think about business, excuse me, just like martial arts, can be a very humbling experience. And I've experienced that myself several times in my career. But, you got to basically roll over and laugh and move on. But there are challenges along the way. And, I tell in my podcast to my listeners, something is going to go wrong along the way. You cannot get comfortable. And every time when we get comfortable, something happens along the way. You're like, oh, my God, what am I going to do now? And then you kind of figure it out. And then you go back to that level of drive, that energy that got you start the business in the first place. You go back to the foundation, to the basics, to the fundamentals that you said, okay, that made you successful in the first place. Sometimes, myself included, we feel that, you know what, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to do all this follow-up. I'm getting all these calls. Everything is good. And then, you find out that, something could happen along the way. Whether like it happened with COVID, that people couldn't see you at the office, you got to completely change your business model and adapt. Something could happen along the way, or perhaps a new competitor comes in and just decides to use your marketing strategy, or decide to emulate you, but also offer a better service or more efficient service. Anything can happen. So as a business owner, you cannot be complacent. You have to be focused on your business.
You do, and it's such a hard thing. Right? Because you also get tired and you think, well, I don't have to worry about this now. I've arrived. Like the most dangerous thing is I've arrived.
No, we haven't.
No, you haven't. You don't ever say to yourself, I've arrived. You talk to any of the greats like Warren Buffett. I'm trying to think of some people like Mark Cuban. He's been in the news lately. I've had many conversations with Mark Cuban. He was never complacent. He was never satisfied. And people dissuaded him every step of the way, including when he thought when he had the broadcast that he was using on the internet that made him so much money, that started everything for him, people thought it was ridiculous. And then it's what led to him becoming a billionaire. And he had to have patience. He had to not be complacent because there were so many obstacles in his way.
This also goes into the risk-taking that we as business owners take. I mean, if we believe that we're doing the right thing, we believe that this is our passion, my philosophy is just go for it anyway. You're not going, even if it doesn't come out the same way you planned it originally, you're not going to be in a worse position that you were before by not trying it. That make sense?
Yeah, my saying is leap and the net will find you.
Yes.
Because if you don't, it goes back to that regret. And what's the worst that can happen? Then if something you try doesn't work, maybe you learn something else and then you go in a different direction. It works even better. I think one of the problems, Rich, is that a lot of people have, I find it often when I'm speaking, that I'll ask people in the audience how many are perfectionists. And of course, they all, like half of them, more than half, raise their hand. And they don't, that's kind of that fear that holds them back. If it's not perfect, if it's not completely planned out, I'm not going to take the risk. They don't want to take the risk. They have to have it. They have to have the guarantee. But in business, there's no guarantees. In life, there's no guarantees.
No, there none. And, I tell that to my friends. I belong to a mastermind group of attorneys called the Advocates Boardroom. And I tell some of my friends, I give them the strategy and I'm like, you're overthinking it. As you grow, you got to make bigger decisions faster. And we don't have the luxury of time. Time does not stop for any one of us. So if you're 60, 70% confident that the decision is the right one, just go for it. We're never going to be 100%. And in marketing, and I did a marketing segment, because I have a marketing degree from the University of Tampa, and that's kind of my background as well. And I said, most of the marketing, it's not going to work. I mean, that's the reality. So all these advertising that we spend, or social media, none of it is going to work 100% of the time. What is not going to work if you do nothing. If you do something, the cumulative effect of all the marketing that you do will work. So I said, don't overthink it and just do it. Just do it. What's worse can happen?
Right. And I love that word too. I use that a lot, overthinking, because that's where you get caught. That's where you get stuck. That's where you stay and you don't make the move because you're constantly going over it. And you talk yourself out of it. A lot of times that's what happens. And then by the time you've talked yourself out of it, somebody else has come along and they're first to market with the idea that you thought you had that nobody else was thinking about.
Remember a story that, I went to military school in Puerto Rico, and then I went to ROTC, and we were at a camp, and it was a leadership camp that we were in charge in telling people what to do, and there were some certain decisions. And at one point, I was directing my team, and I was just kind of like not sure what I was going to do. And the captain says, "Sarah, make a decision." He yelled at me, "Make a decision, just make it." And that stuck with me for like 40-something years because, we have this aversion of making decisions thinking that is the wrong decision. Just make one. You think about it, just make it. You can always adjust it, but make a decision because otherwise you're paralyzed by overthinking what is going to happen. And then people get paralyzed sometimes, especially in business.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of times, if you took a survey and people were being honest, they would tell you that. I know that there are certain moments in all kinds of businesses that there's that, that fear or flight kind of thing that also kicks in. And that's partly what we're talking about, where you're like, no, I'm done. I'm getting away from this. I'm not going to go in that direction. I'm not going to take that risk. And they walk away from maybe what could be an amazing opportunity. I had a conversation with Richard Branson about that, and he is the ultimate risk taker. He's like, yes, life is not exciting if you're not taking risks, Kate. So that stuck with me because how many times you're going to be successful if you fail and fail and fail again, ultimately you'll have that success that you probably never could have dreamed of.
But also you learn from failures. Sometimes you're going to make adjustments. Sometimes you say maybe it wasn't the right opportunity. But, failure is part of a learning process to become successful. Otherwise,
absolutely.
I tell them in my podcast to my listeners, you're not going to become an expert at anything the first time you try it. It's just not going to happen. We're not born with those skills, innate skills. You will learn along the way. You will make a lot of mistakes along the way. And that's what I learned in martial arts because it's basically learning through mistakes and improving and fine-tuning. It's all about fundamentals and just fine-tuning those fundamentals until you become an expert at them. But that takes years of practice, a lot of frustration along the way, a lot of discipline that goes along with the martial arts, but also in sports and in business. If you don't have discipline, you're not going to be successful in business as well.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I want to talk about a topic that is super important. You talk about the art of influential listening in your book. Tell me more about that.
Well, here's what happens. I think our brains are moving so fast that you have all these ideas, or you're talking to someone, you're talking to a customer, you're talking to whoever you're talking to. It could be your son or daughter. It could be, at any level in your life. And they're trying to have a conversation with you to tell you something, but you're thinking about what you're going to say next. And you're not really hearing what they're saying. I mean, there is an art to becoming an influential listener. You have to take a pause and kind of empty that head out of all these ideas that are floating around there in your head and really focus on that person who's on the phone, that person who's standing next to you, whatever form of communication, and pay attention to what they're saying. Listen to understand. I mean, how often do you walk away? This is when you have a problem. How often do you walk away from a conversation that could be just a little quick conversation where someone says, hey, this is important. Do you know X, Y, Z? And you walk away and you can't remember the details. So then you have to call them back up again or say, wait, what did you say? How many times in your life are you saying, I didn't know that, but you didn't clarify until after you were already away from the person. Yeah. Because you're not listening to understand what they're saying. Let them make their points, really absorb what it is. And if you don't understand it, ask the questions so that you then remember what they've told you. I think the other thing to becoming an influential listener is you got to get rid of the distractions. We live in the world of distractions. We live in the world of attention spans of 7 seconds, Rich. Yeah. So, your phone's ringing. We're doing this podcast, and I shut off my phone. I shut down everything I could because I know there's people that'll be trying to get a hold of me, and I'm not going to be distracted by that. And a lot of times people, you'll see them, they'll look off to the side. They're looking at their phone. You're at lunch, looking. Well, you don't have time for lunch. You don't have time to have a conversation if you're so involved of why your phone is blowing up, right? And here's the other thing. If something important happens and somebody gets a hold of you, I think in business, the number one thing you have to do is be responsive. But if you're responsive to someone and you say, hey, listen, I'm in a client meeting. I'll get back to you this afternoon at 3:00, promise, or whatever. People are good with that. You can easily do that and shift instead of dropping in the middle of what you're doing to attend something else that maybe is not even an important thing. It's so important to limit those distractions. Put the phone in the desk and for an hour, focus on your emails. Whatever it takes to do that, then go back to the calls. Nobody is going to crucify you for not getting back to them within the hour or within a couple hours, as long as you reach out to them at some point, even if you're being hammered by other things, as long as you're responsive.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that we're challenged now with the technology that we have, that we are supposed to be on 24/7 because people have access to our phones and emails, and we have our emails and our phones. And I've come to the realization that there's just not enough time in a day to handle all the communication that we receive. So I changed my focus and priorities. It's just impossible to respond to 100 emails a day. It's impossible to meet everybody you want to meet and get all the phone calls. So how do we challenge that, and how do we address that without losing our minds is the challenge. Because it can continually, if you're basically on 24/7, and when you get up in the morning, you check your emails. Before you go to bed, you check your emails as well. You're answering emails to 10 or 11 o'clock at night. That's your life. So I make it a rule. I don't take work home. When I leave the office, I'm done. I just leave the office and I'll start the next day, and tomorrow's another day. But there has to be some clear boundaries about when you work and when you're off work, because your mind needs a break. And it comes down to the top in your book, the time to focus and reset. You talk about that and how important that is.
I mean, you said it beautifully. It's so true. How are you going to have what it takes? How are you going to have the juice? How are you going to have the creative energy that you need day in and day out if you don't focus and you don't reset? And it's important during the day to do that. I mean, sometimes if I'm getting hammered by all kinds of things, I'll know if I'm moving along too fast. I'll take a walk around the block. I'm blessed to live less than a mile from a beach. I'll go down to the beach and I'll walk on the beach, come back, boom, I'm focused and I'm ready to go because I took that mental break and now I'm back focusing on what it is I need to focus on. And if you can't focus, you need to push it aside because that's when you make mistakes, when you're just rushing to get things done. And trust me, I've done it. It's like when you answer an email and you haven't read the whole email, you think you get the gist of it, but then you don't see what the last paragraph was or the last line, so you miss the whole point of the email. I bet that happens to a lot of people who are listening to this podcast because you're just trying to respond fast.
I'm going to give you a hack that I use in my email Outlook, that you can actually have a 5-second delay in your email. So when you click send, it gives you kind of a 5-second delay. Just in case you realize you made a mistake, you can stop it before it goes out.
And that's good.
Yes, and I've used it many times. It's like, oh my God, I forgot this. There's a typo, and I'd be able to stop it. You can go up to 10 seconds, that's soon, but I think 5 seconds, sometimes it makes a difference. You realize, I didn't put an attachment there, or I forgot, maybe I'm sending it to the wrong person. That 5 seconds can be a lifesaver. It's right there in Outlook. So check it out today. Yeah. We have a few more minutes. Kate, how can people find you?
There's a couple places you can go. If you want to know more about the radio show, go to katedelaneyradio.com. If you want to find more out about me just in general, and they all have links to books and all of that, go to katedelanayspeaker.com. And you'll find more about media appearances, my career, that kind of thing, where I'm speaking, all of that.
I'm going to also have for our listeners, we're going to have the Kate's website in our show notes as well, and our YouTube channel as well. So you'll be able to link from there. Before we leave, I want to share with our listeners a quote from your book that I think that I relate to it, and I think our listeners will relate to it. And it's page 137. You talk about the feeling when you accomplish your goal, the thrill, the bone-deep exhaustion, the deep sense of reward after countless hours of invested time and tears is indescribable. That quote, I relate to it because business ownership, as I mentioned in my book, is a roller coaster ride. There are days that you feel that you want to call a utility company and thank them for giving you, electricity. Some days you're looking at your computer and say, "What the hell did I do?" So it happens more often once in a while, but it's business ownership, and that's the reason we go into it, because we're excited, we're thrilled, and when it goes well, you're like in cloud nine, and again, you're euphoric. And when it goes bad, you're like, "What the hell is going on here?" But that quote kind of encapsulates that. That is an indescribable feeling of you're exhausted. It's really difficult to describe unless you're in it.
Yeah, and it's what I call being in the gap. It's what people who meditate say when they feel that feeling, that they feel like, wow, they're almost invincible. It's a weird sensation. It's a great sensation. It's one you all want to experience when you have worked it and you've been discouraged and you've had to have the patience, and then it pays off for you. That feeling is just amazing.
I want to show our listeners the book. Again, it's Deal Your Own Destiny. Increase Your Odds, Big Win, and Become Extraordinary. It's available in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever your local library. You can ask for it as well. You have Kate's website, katedelaneyradio.com, and katedelanayspeaker.com. Kate, thank you very much for being with us this morning. I'm very excited. This is a must-read for the business owners. I think it is will give them a perspective how they personally can make some shifts to really have a better quality of life, but also some business tips here that are really, really important for them to have and they'll enjoy, and really dealing their own destiny, not relying on anybody else. We have the cards that are dealt with, and we just work with those cards and make them happen for us. But thank you again for joining us this morning. I'm very excited, and our audience will thank you. And this is a must-read. I'll ask them for them to buy your book.
Rich, thank you so much. It was my honor to come on with you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.